Architecture has destroyed me many times throughout my career, but in this video, I want to talk about three very notable moments where I totally got destroyed by architecture. And I'm sharing these stories so that you architects and designers out there who have an entrepreneurial spirit can use this to help you on your own journeys. Now, this all starts 1 year before I graduate architecture from university. I'm just coasting along, everything's going fine, at least I think so, until at the end of the semester, I check my grade and I get a failing grade. And I promise you, I did not see this coming. Now, throughout the semester, I was experiencing some sort of resistance with my professor, but that's normal from all design classes. Those of you who have taken design classes, you know that there's always a struggle with your professor in having them agree with all of your decisions. It's normal. So I didn't think I was going to fail from this. I just thought it was normal. Now, the first thing that I felt when I failed this class, when I saw that failing grade was it's over. Everything is over. Because failing this class to me meant that I'm not good at architecture. What's the point if I can't even pass a design class? It also meant that it was totally embarrassing to go back to work and tell my peers, who are other designers and architects, that I had failed a design class. It was embarrassing to my friends, to my families. It was just completely an embarrassing moment for me. Now, this feeling, everything that I experienced during this moment, it deserves its own video, and I am going to be uploading that. So you should subscribe if you want to see that kind of content, because I will be posting it in the future. But it was a terrible experience, and I just thought my life is over. Luckily, because this was told to me at the end of the semester, there was no need to sign up for classes right away or anything like that. So I couldn't technically quit immediately. So the next few days, I had time to process what had happened, and I realized that there was too much on the line for me to quit. So unfortunately, I was going to have to repeat a whole entire year and or lose a whole year, but I decided to stick with it. Now, eventually, I redid everything and I was able to pass the class and pass everything else, and I never failed another class ever again. So I was able to do it. Now, I learned a very valuable lesson from this, actually, a couple valuable lessons. The first lesson is to not expect others to care about you. When we're in school and we have professors, we become friends with these professors and we always think that they have our back, but that's not always going to be the case. And so it's bad to assume these things. And so a lot of times you think like, hey, I'm in this person's best interest or this person's my best interest. And the truth of the matter is that they have a job to do and so do you. So every decision that you make in school, in life, in architecture, whatever it is, it should always be 100% backed up by you first, which brings me to the other valuable lesson is to not trust anything that anyone tells you to do, because what happens is a lot of times we let other people influence our ideas, and it's okay to let them influence, but if you're not 100% sold on what you're being told to do, then what ends up happening is that you have this amalgamation of this person's idea and your idea, which are not fully fledged together, and it ends up being just one pile of crap. Now, a few years after that experience, we find the second time that architecture destroyed me, and that was already when I was working professionally in the career. So everything had started great. I was working, I loved the work that I was doing, but little by little, things just started to get really toxic at my job, where there was like a bunch of deadlines, and these deadlines were coming out of nowhere, and they were coming fast because we were just picking up new work and there wasn't anybody else there to help out on the extra work. It was just a really bad experience overall. Management started to get also very toxic, and it was just a really bad experience. Now, I had thought about quitting and finding other possibilities of jobs, but my fear was, what if I quit and I end up hating my other job even more? So I started to kind of create this idea in my head that every firm that I was going to work in was either going to be as bad or worse. And the problem was not the job, but actually the field of architecture. Architecture was just this toxic career, and it didn't help what I was reading online. So I just thought I picked the wrong career and I'm screwed. And I hated every moment of it. Every day that passed by got so bad that I started to feel something that I've never felt before at the time, which was anxiety. I started to feel really bad anxiety. I started dreading every moment of going to work and even leaving work, because I knew that the next day I was going to have to repeat the whole thing all over again. It was just actually a really dark time in my career. And that's when I just decided to quit. I thought I was going to quit the industry altogether, but I didn't even have that plan. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I gave my 1 month notice that I was quitting the job. They weren't too happy about that, and actually, I got fired 2 weeks into that, which is actually a great thing because it got me healing much faster. But that first month, I had no plans, right? So I quit. I have about a total of maybe $3,000, $4,000 in my savings account, which was going to get me by the next couple of months. And luckily, I was living with my parents back then, so I didn't have a fear of being homeless, but I did have a fear of A, losing my identity, and B, losing every nice thing that I had acquired, like my car and, little things that I had bought along the way. As I mentioned, that first month was just like a relax mode. I had no plan, no career choice, nothing. And then all of a sudden, something interesting happened that second month. I decided that I was going to get my license. Now, to this day, I cannot tell you why I decided to get my license in architecture because I was pretty much set on just quitting altogether. But I thought, since I have nothing else in mind, I'm just going to try to get my license. I don't know why that happened, but it was like the best decision I ever made because studying to get my license opened up this whole new world of architecture that was never made apparent in school or in my job. And it just kind of got me excited again for the career. And it kind of like gave me some new goals to aspire to. And while that was happening, I get a call from one of my other colleagues. Like, this just happens out of some miracle. And they need help working on this fitness center. It's a high-end fitness center. And I was so excited because I had never worked on a fun project like that. Needless to say, this balance of studying for something like great like my license and working on this really cool project, it really reignited my passion for architecture again, and it really kept me here and it kept me moving forward. And then from this moment, right, I learned two other valuable lessons. And the first was how important your network is. And network is such a fancy like business word that I personally hated hearing when I was up and coming in my career. But I think that just the idea of forget the word network, but just think about your peers, right? Your friends, the people that you know and the people that know you. It's important to keep these people and check up on them every once in a while. Let them know what you're up to. Ask them what they're up to. Because having that network, you'll never know, like in my case, where it will take you. And the second valuable lesson is that your environment might be draining you of your creativity and your passion without you even knowing it. So sometimes if something feels off, do something about it. Change that environment before it gets so bad that you decide to like quit altogether. And if you are thinking of quitting architecture, I do have another video that I made, so check that out. I'm going to link it in the description and I'll pop it up here so you guys can check it out. So I'm back in architecture, everything's going smoothly, new job, new projects that I'm working on. Everything's going great for a few years. And then little by little, I start to feel weird again. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I just start to feel like I'm not really enjoying this anymore. As the months go by, I'm constantly contemplating what the problem is, and I realize that I just feel like I don't have control over my career. I'm put on a path at a firm, and if I want to do something about it, which I would often try, it was like there was just this resistance for me, that was going against me, that wasn't allowing me to grow the way that I wanted to grow. I couldn't pick my own projects. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I thought maybe project management was what I was going to do or what I should do, but I realized that the project managers that I was working with were twice as busy as I was, and they seemed to be miserable because they were not only managing the project, but they were also doing the work that I was doing. That doesn't sound sustainable at all. Once again, I had gotten to this point where I was questioning the career of architecture and deciding that I had made the wrong decision in studying architecture. I started thinking of other things I can do. Maybe I can do some development. So I started learning about development, and not software, but architecture, right? I thought about buying my own properties and building properties and selling them, and that sounded cool, but as I read more about it seemed so apparent that you needed capital, you needed money to do this. And I know that there was ways to get money from banks and stuff, but it felt so out of reach. So although I love the idea of development, and I will get into that in the future, I had to put it on hold because I had to first deal with the big problem, which is what do I do right now about this career and the problem that I'm in? Each day that passed grew heavier and heavier on me, And I started to resent everything. I started to hate the drive to work, the tolls, the office small talk, the email chains, the meetings. Everything was just driving me crazy. I'm like, okay, I'm quitting architecture for a third time. Third time's a charm. I'm done this time. And then I remember that project that I had done years ago, that fitness center. What if I could just recreate that experience again, right? What if I could just find little projects like that and just work on that? Maybe that could spark up the interest in architecture that I once had all over again. And that's exactly what I did. I started to freelance. And at first, I started freelancing on the side, and then that eventually became my full time position where I would work with multiple clients, fulfilling their architectural needs. And the valuable lesson that I learned at that moment was how important working on your own projects is, right? Doing things on the side, hobbies related to architecture or freelancing. And I've mentioned this before. I will make a video of this in the future, so subscribe to check those out. But basically what I learned is the importance of never stop working on things that interest you within architecture. You need your job, right? But a few hours a week you should take to do things like either freelancing or work on competitions or design buildings that you're interested or learn more about the career of architecture, because these are the things that keep you passionate about architecture, especially in cases where your work is not as awesome as you might want it to be. Looking back at these times, I realize what dark times they were for me. And I don't know if the way that I said these stories really portray how dark these experiences were for me. But what I do realize 100%, and I think that is apparent, is how strong and how resilient those dark, those hard times made me in my career. Each time that I was felt with a challenge and my back was against the wall, whether by luck or by just contemplation, I found a way to get out of it. And so at this moment, I'd like to speak to you designers and architects out there who have an entrepreneurial spirit, who want to do things differently, who are thinking about doing things differently, or who are already on your journey to doing things differently. I want you to take these moments whenever you struggle through a tough time yourself and realize that there's always a way out. The important thing is to not quit. The important thing is to stick with it, and I promise you, you will find the way. Now, if you feel like this video helped you, then I'd appreciate you to like it, and that'll hopefully boost it with the algorithm. And if you think it might help someone else, share it with them. But in the meantime, I'm going to be making more content, so subscribe to check out the other content that I make regarding entrepreneurship and architecture. And till then, keep designing.